It's a big week for soccer on the planet, for the United States and Kansas City. International events for the women's and men's team have implications for us in the nation's heartland, and columnist Sam Mellinger and soccer beat writer Sam McDowell are here to talk about this on Sports Beat KC, a sports podcast presented by the Kansas City Star. I'm your host, Blair Kerkhoff. Sam Mellinger, Sam McDowell, Sam Kerkhoff, we're all here today talking soccer in Kansas City. Guys, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on.
I'm doing great. More energy than Sam McDowell. I just want that on the record.
It's a high bar to pass.
Noted. Guys, I was thinking about this today, that as I was coming downtown, Kansas City's bona fides as a soccer town shouldn't be questioned, right? I mean, Kansas City's a soccer town. It always has been. It's proven it time and again with the attendance at national events and the success of sporting. It's just, Kansas City, you can call it, it's a legit soccer town. But it's never been more important for Kansas City to live up to that idea of being a soccer town than it is now. And I thought this was a good week to talk about it because you got the Women's World Cup going on. You got the Men's Gold Cup happening in Kansas City this week. Sporting's playing, played last weekend and plays this weekend as well. If there's been ever a time for Kansas City to kind of show off as a soccer city, it's now. And the reason I say that is because we're within a year of the announcement for the World Cup site selection. Kansas City is one of the finalists for that, and there's huge money for the cities that land that event. So, Sam Mellinger, am I right? I mean, is there any reason to question Kansas City as a soccer town?
No, I mean, I think that this is a soccer town. I think whether you can call Kansas City a soccer town, I say yes, but the answer to that question is only tangentially related to, will we get World Cup games?
That's right.
And I think we have a good argument. Geographically, I think, Pinnacle, there's some stuff like that. But look, I can't get anybody with the Chiefs or Sporting Kansas City to tell me that they moved. And maybe Sam McDowell, maybe you've heard different, but I can't get anybody to tell me we moved this game, the Milan
Munich,
Bayern game, from Arrowhead because of tickets. But that's what it sounds like to me. I find the rain explanation a little bit, just hard to believe. So I think that is the first time in a long time that I can remember thinking, maybe we're not living up to, or maybe that was biting off more than we could chew. It's an international game. There's no local connection, all that stuff. That's the first time that I'm like, that's an argument against Kansas City getting World Cup games. It's the first time that I've thought that in a really long time.
The ticket sales for that game, we found out during the announcement that the game was moving from Arrowhead to Children's Mercy, was below what Children's Mercy was at the time, which is like 19,000, right?
Yeah. With standing room, they can probably fit about 20.
Right. So I think that would have been a bad look.
Totally.
To play that game at Arrowhead with a lot of empty seats. Bad enough to have an influence, do you think, on Sam McDowell?
I agree with Melly, because I think that they think it was bad enough to potentially have an influence, and why not trust their opinion on what attendance means in these matches. And we're 2 days ahead of the Gold Cup right now, and there's still tickets left for the Gold Cup too. And I get the friendly not having great sales. To be honest, I think the tickets are pricey, probably pricing a lot of people out. You're not sure in a match like that, in a summer match when these European teams are off, who's actually going to be playing, if the stars you want to see for those two teams are even going to be in the lineup, and that probably affects whether or not you actually decide to buy your ticket. But for the Gold Cup in the United States, this is a big deal, and you've got to be able to sell out that match at Children's Mercy Park on Wednesday.
Well, so that's a doubleheader, right? That's not just USA playing.
Yeah, you've got Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. Is that?
Yep, Guyana.
I was relying on you for that one.
Well, let's go with Guyana. That's like at 5:30.
That's 5:30, and the U.S. plays Panama at 8.
8. So the two best teams in the group are
U.S. and Panama. They've already advanced onto the knockout stage, so I guess you could say it doesn't really have the meaning that it would, obviously, if you needed a victory to advance, but U.S. has shown pretty well in the first couple.
Yeah, and I don't
matches.
think tickets would have been sold based on that. And the tickets
Right.
would have already been sold. So let's stay with the Gold Cup for a second. Is it every 2 years? And it's the CONCACAF.
During the opposite of the World Cup cycle, yeah. So it kind of bases on when the World Cup is, but yeah, it's the first year after, and usually the year right before the World Cup, and it's your biggest tournament for the United States outside of the World Cup. And considering this group didn't make the World Cup, it's their biggest tournament in 5 years now.
And it's a tournament the U.S. has had success in. They've won this thing.
Yeah, I mean, heck, Graham Zusi's been a part of 2 championship teams. Matt Beasler was part of a Gold Cup winning team. Yeah, I mean, now one of the reasons Jurgen Klinsmann eventually got fired was they performed so poorly in his last Gold Cup. But historically speaking, yeah, this is a tournament they've done well in, and it's on home soil this year.
Yeah. So Children's Mercy gets games. They've been at. It's actually the last group of games before they go to the quarterfinals.
Yep.
Everybody else will have played 3, and I'll be curious to see what the attendance is on Wednesday night.
I've heard they're close to selling this out, so I expect to sell out on Wednesday. It just hasn't happened yet.
Well, at least it'll look good. I mean,
Right.
if you're close to selling it out at Children's Mercy, it's going to look good.
You've got a good atmosphere out there, sure. I mean, all that stuff I do think matters.
I saw the Cuba Canada game from. Is that who was playing? I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was Cuba Canada playing in Charlotte the other day, and the Panther Stadium was about empty for that. I don't know why I would have expected anything else, but
Well, USA's game the other night was at Cleveland. It was in Cleveland.
Yeah.
There were a lot of empty seats there too.
There were.
You know, I mean, you put these things in football stadiums, you got to get at least 40, 50 to make it look decent. You know what I mean? And that's, look, like, not to keep going back to this, but 2 days after the announcement of this the Bayern game getting moved, I happened to be at Monster Jam at Arrowhead, and they had 40,000 people there, probably maybe 50. I mean, there was a bunch of the upper deck that was blocked off. But I just kept thinking, you know what? Like, even if you just sold the seats that are here, that's a lower number. Like that, that would look good. But you can't. What you can't do is have 15 in a football stadium, because then it looks like the Wizards. Not Sporting, but it looks like the Wizards, and that's a big reason why they had to move.
Am I being overly sensitive about the appearance, though? Is Kansas City's going to sell itself to the World Cup deciders on central location, the Pinnacle Sports Complex, where the men's team was training today? You were there, Sam McDowell. There are reasons to be in Kansas City besides the. I think for Kansas City to get this far in the process is an acknowledgement of Kansas City embraces the sport.
Sure.
I guess maybe it's Midwestern, that healthy Midwestern paranoia that I have, that you don't want anything to go wrong in a contest. That a Midwest city is up against coast cities.
Yeah.
And that's part of the argument.
Yeah, I think a couple fair things to say is that, and I know this. I mean, this is from somebody very involved in the process. It's widely believed that there's 7-8 cities that are locks, and Kansas City's not one of those. So Kansas City's fighting for one of those other 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So before you go, that's a great thought. But before you continue, let's do it's
17.
Right.
Yeah.
It's 17 cities are going to host
Correct.
games, and
The best Kansas City can do is group play matches or potentially up to a quarterfinal, because the semifinal and championship matches are going to have different locations for sure.
For sure. But we're pretty certain that Canada's 3 cities are going to be selected, and Mexico's 3 cities are going to be selected. So it ends up being like 10 U.S. cities, 10 out of 17 U.S. cities, I think, are going. 17 of the finalists are U.S. cities, and 10 of them will end up being sites. So that's kind of the math we're looking at.
And you think L.A. lock? You think Dallas probably?
New York is already a lock.
Atlanta's
probably a lock.
Yeah. I mean, so you go down that list, and Kansas City's not going to be a lock.
It's a bubble. It's a bubble city. For sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We K-State basketball here, right? But the thing about, I just keep wondering if it made the Midwest paranoia. You just said it, but like, is the geography and Pinnacle going to work against getting games? Because they can say, well, Kansas City would be a great place to have a team based there because they've got the best training ground in the country, and they're not going to have more than a 2-3 hour flight anywhere. Like I could just see that being sold, and like, hey, they're still, because you have Spain here or something, you have Brazil here, like there are going to be a lot of people
you can have a party for a month.
Yes, and I just wonder if we're going to end up in a place there that's going to be sold as, well, we're part of the World Cup.
Tell you what, though, I want games.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that would be a huge disappointment. It was like, oh, we get to go watch them train.
Yeah, that's right.
To me, the biggest selling points are what you guys have already mentioned is certainly pinnacle. I mean, Greg Berhalter, U.S. national team coach today, just said at practice that it's the standard now in America. So he thinks it's the best facility there is. And then, obviously, you sort of are playing this math as far as if Kansas City doesn't have games, you don't have any place within a very wide radius in the middle of the country. You're not going to have games. But to me, the biggest hurdle I think they have to get over, and what they're probably selling, is transportation. You look at Kansas City, and you've got a lot of transportation issues, certainly from the airport. Now, even Mayor Sly James said at the press conference, Melly, you were there too, that if there wasn't the new airport terminal, they would have been out already.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a big hurdle that they are crossing off, but you still have, to me, how are people going to get from games to training, and everybody that wants to go to the hotels, and just all sorts of shuttles and stuff like that you've got to work out.
I've heard from people whose opinions I respect that similar sentiment, that the idea of the stadium being 10 miles from the downtown area and another 20 miles from training facility, it really would work against Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think of the other finalists that we know, that are out there. That I think Kansas City is unique in having its stadium that far away from downtown. Maybe the New York. It's not a New York City, but it's right across the river. The MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
That's not. That's
New
not
York plays by different rules.
Yes, right. You take them off the board.
You guys have been obviously to heck. The Chargers are playing there now. We're in LA. What's sort of the distance between that training facility and, because the teams I think would still train in Carson versus the stadium.
I think like New York, I think LA just is never not going to be part of the soccer lineup in this country. I mean, the Rose Bowl's been the site for every major.
Some Mexico, U.S. games, they've had some of their biggest games.
Yeah,
there.
In fact, all the Gold Cup finals seems to be. I don't think this year's is, but no, it's at Soldier Field, right?
Yeah, you're right.
But a lot of the Gold Cup finals have been at the Rose Bowl. So, and then in '94, the World Cup final was at the Rose Bowl. So no, again, LA plays by a different standard, and their new stadium will be on board then too. The new football stadium in LA. For Kansas City, the stakes are enormous for this. People talk about Cincinnati. They're competing against Cincinnati. Well, Cincinnati has been a professional soccer city for a couple years now, at least MLS level.
This is their expansion year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just this year. Nashville
will come in next year to the league.
But they're one of the finalists too.
Right.
Denver has been around as long as Kansas City in terms of MLS.
Does not support that team at all.
Doesn't seem to have a soccer presence there. I have a son who lives in Denver, and they said there is the presence of soccer there isn't what it is in Kansas City with Sporting KC. So
that's surprising to me. That is a sports town, Denver. They support their teams.
We've got a guy on staff out there that, obviously Steve Vacherot's from that area.
Yeah.
He blames it a little bit on the location out there. Ownership for sure, but location as well. It's apparently not the most convenient place if you live downtown to
it's halfway
try and
to the
go
airport.
out to a game.
And anybody who's been to the airport in Denver knows how far that is from downtown, and the stadium's halfway to the airport.
But it's not like Kansas City, Kansas is a great place to go visit.
Right. So anyway, the reason we're talking about this is not just civic pride or the $620 million economic impact, which would be there's never been anything like it. When Kansas City announced the NFL draft coming to town in 2022, 23, I forgot what the year was.
22, I think.
Maybe, whatever it is, it's coming in a few years. They talked about it'll have a really big economic impact, and maybe 100,000, at least 100,000, more than that. I mean, it could be legit, 250,000 people here for that. But the World Cup would be even bigger than that, because you're talking about having nations' fan bases here for like weeks at a time. I mean, $620 million economic impact would be massive for this region, for this economy, and if you're a World Cup host city, what's bigger than that in terms of having a sporting event of international appeal in your town? I can't think of anything that's bigger.
There are few things I feel more strongly about than clapping back at these economic impact predictions. I think a lot of times they don't take into account like displaced spending and all that stuff. But the World Cup would be the biggest, forget about sports, be the biggest event in Kansas City history, right? That would be more people here, I would assume, than any political convention, than the NFL draft, than the World Series, than the All-Star game, than anything. I mean, because these are people largely from outside of Kansas City coming in to spend their money and spend time here. I mean, then you add in like media exposure. I mean, it would be. Is the World Series the biggest sports event that we've had here?
Well, certainly in terms of stature,
yeah.
It would, the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say the World Series and the AFC Championship game were the two biggest sporting events we've ever had. Final Four in '88 is the last one of those, but that's changed.
College basketball 40 years ago or 30 years ago is a lot different than it is now. And you get 6 World Cup games here. That is the World Series times 20.
Yeah, the length of the stay for all these people is the separator.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be. I feel like there are a lot of people. Look, like you either like soccer or you don't, to a large degree. And I think there's a lot of people who maybe aren't into soccer that are kind of dismiss it. I don't care, whatever. But if we got games here, their minds would be blown about how big a World Cup game would be in Kansas City. I mean, it's hard to overstate that. And that's the one time that economic impact study, $620 million. I'm not going to poo-poo that as much as I would for a lot of other things. That might be real.
All right. Pick your all-star. What would be the best four nations that could be here for the World Cup in 2026? And take USA out of it. Say USA couldn't be here. What would be the all-time party for Kansas City in 2026?
Dude, I feel like I'll take Brazil in the bottom 3 picks, and I think that would be enough for me.
That'd be great. I'll tell you, some of those Euros coming over here they can throw a party too.
That's right.
Spain or.
I mean, Mexico would be huge to have.
Yeah,
Mexico play.
Absolutely.
It's kind of weird because when you sort of do that math, you're looking at the star players, but the star players in 2026 are going to be a lot different.
We have no idea who they are today.
So I think Mexico would be just a huge draw, but I think probably the best thing that could happen would be a mix, just to get a bunch of different sort of cultures in one. I think that would be a really cool thing because, like you said, I wonder if the non-soccer fan in Kansas City realizes how big of a deal this sport is to other countries, and it would be just a cool thing to experience how those cultures embrace this sport.
Yeah, that's well said.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, sporting. Got a win over the weekend. It was good to see, and we'll talk about that when we come back. Hey, it's Blair Kerkhoff, and if you're listening to this, you love Kansas City sports, whether it's the Chiefs, Royals, Sporting, Mizzou, KU, or K-State. And no one covers these teams like the Kansas City Star. If you currently subscribe to the paper or have a digital subscription, thank you for your support. And if you don't, here's a great offer. It's called Sports Pass, unlimited digital access to every sports story and video on kansascity.com. And it's just $30 for the first year. It's the best sports value in town, just 8 cents a day or $2.50 a month. You can't beat that. Subscribe now at kansascity.com/sportspass. We're back with Sam McDowell and Sam Mellinger talking some soccer. And Sporting Kansas City picked up its first road victory of the season on Sunday, 1-0 at Columbus. I watched that game and thought Columbus had a lot of chances and could not convert. seems like that happened to Sporting a lot this year. It was good to see Sporting get on the good side of one of those and move up in the standings. They're now the first team outside of the Western Conference playoffs. So, Sam McDowell, you watched it too. What, in addition to just moving up the table, as they say in soccer, it's quite a spirit lifter, don't you think?
Yeah, soccer's such a weird game. I think what separates it from the other sports are the fact that you can completely not play well and win, or you can play really well and not win. And they've had a lot of the latter this year, I think. This was the former, because I thought that first 45 minutes was about as bad as a Sporting Kansas City team as I've seen all season. And somehow they end up winning the match. But today I was out of practice, and just a few of the guys were there getting treatment, but talked to a couple of the coaches as well, and they said it was amazing what the feeling was like in the locker room afterwards. These guys have just sort of been waiting on stuff to go wrong in a match, and to not have that happen late in that game that we've seen 3 times they've given up a goal late in the game this year, to not have that happen, to actually get a win, it's almost like the performance didn't matter. It was just these guys needed something to go right, because the issues here, as much as you want to talk about injuries and all that stuff through the slump, has been their mindset and their confidence has just been completely shattered for a couple of months now.
I'm not used to seeing it from Sporting.
Yeah,
we deal with it with the Royals on a not a consistent basis, but we've seen it before, and it's just been. And when the Royals have been bad, Sporting has always been good. So the summer wasn't always lost around here, and it just started to seem like, and it still to some extent seems like a dreary summer when it comes to our the summer teams, but it's just one game, right? One win.
Yeah, but I think a big one, because you look back on it, and how many other sports it would sort of be like playing in the Super Bowl and the next week playing a regular season game, and how do you get up for it? When Sporting got knocked out of the Champions League, then they're playing in Colorado in front of 8,000 or 9,000 people, and they were completely lifeless, and that sort of started this trend. And we just saw a lot of matches where, frankly, I just didn't think they had a lot of energy. And there's a legitimate excuse that I think goes into an athlete's mindset of playing in the Champions League, trying to be the first MLS team to ever win it, and then playing an MLS 1 of 34 the next week.
Sam, what do you, Mellinger? I don't know if you've been out to a game this year. I have not.
Once. Yeah.
So, is there a different vibe? I mean, does it seem different?
I think it does. And Sam McDowell, follows the team closer than either of us, but so I'm kind of happy that he's seeing and hearing the same things that it looks like to me when I watch them play. It's just they're just a team without a mojo. They've just seemed like a team a little bit lost. They seem like a team that is waiting. You mentioned, Sam, just now about giving up the late goal. There's games where it looks like they're just almost noticeably waiting for that bad moment to come, and it's and then that's chicken and egg, right? So I'm so glad you said this, because the focus has been so much on injuries, and look, that is a legitimate thing too. There are times where the injured list, that team would beat the healthy team, in a fair fight, and so they're gonna get, you would think, hope healthier, but that doesn't matter if their confidence doesn't change, if they don't start playing with a little bit more assertiveness and confidence, for lack of a better word. Just keep using it, but that's, to me, and it's a weird thing seeing that in that uniform, with that coach on the sideline. It's a foreign kind of look,
which is what a tribute to that organization.
Sure.
And how well it's played for as long as it's been here.
Yeah.
The Wizard, even as the Wizards. I mean, they're two cup finals as the Wizards with one championship. So, yeah, it's difficult. Like I said, it's difficult for me to think of them as bad. And they have played poorly.
Last week, and they had that time off after they got destroyed in the Open Cup, which even Peter Vermees acknowledged that was probably a good thing for them, just to be able to focus on one competition for the rest of the year. But they had, I guess it was a 9-day break. They didn't talk tactics at all. in those 9 days. It was all trying to get the mentality of this group back to, and you know what they did was they went back and watched some film from early in the season when they were playing well and said, look, you guys are capable of doing this, but you've got to believe you're capable of doing that. And I think that the coaches are having maybe more of their work cut out for them than they've ever had here because they're working on that mentality more than the X's and O's of the game.
We've seen it in other sports that they got up. They did have they played well early, but they didn't get results early because the Mexico trip turned out to be disastrous.
Yeah.
They lost the game in L.A.
Very first game of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
They played really well.
One of their best games of the season. They lost it. Yeah.
So I think there was a kind of a demoralized feeling with this team after that trip, and then the injuries started to pile up, and you thought, well, if any team can overcome it, it's this one. But even a team that's as well coached, well structured, and organized as Sporting they just weren't able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's two guys that have been out that I think have been real keys. When Matt Beasley's not playing, that team looks completely different on the back line, mostly in organization. Now, I think Matt's also the most talented guy they have back there, but he's in charge of organizing the back, and they've just looked plain disorganized at times. And I think in the midfield, Roger Espinoza being out, you sort of wonder how valuable is he when he's on the field because, he doesn't get a lot of numbers that go on the stat sheet, but when he's out, you notice he's not there. And I think that during that Columbus match, I come back to that, but the 45 minutes of the first half where they played so poorly, he would have been riding everybody on that field. And just watching on TV, you didn't see a lot of guys that are out there outspoken saying, we got to pick it up, we got to get this going, and that's what they miss when he's not on the field.
So what do they have coming up?
They played Salt Lake on Saturday, and oddly enough, that's the team in seventh. The 7 teams make it, so as bad as Sporting's been, if they win that match on Saturday, they're suddenly above the playoff line already.
With half the season to go? Or?
Yeah, that'll be game 17 of 34. So
that is kind of amazing. I kind of like them in the second half,
Yeah, it's interesting because soccer's, as much as people want to make a big deal about home field advantage, and it certainly is, in the playoffs it's all about how you're playing going in. And more than I think more than other sports, in baseball I think teams are more consistent over the long haul of the season, even though it's a longer season. In football, there's certainly more consistency. In soccer, you see some teams come on late. Seattle was in last place a couple of years ago with half the season to go and won MLS Cup because they're playing well once the playoffs get here.
All right, we'll see how it goes for Sporting. We'll see. Before that, though, Women's World Cup team wins today. They play France
Friday.
It's a road game for Team USA. The Women's World Cup is in France. They play Friday, and the men's team, USA men's team, Wednesday night, Children's Mercy Park against Panama. So a couple of national team, international matches this week that the Kansas City will be interested in with Sporting coming up this weekend. Sam Mellinger, Sam McDowell, thanks guys for being here.
All right, Blair.
Thanks to our producers Kathy Liu and Leah Becerra. Kathy doubled as a technical assistant today. Links to the stories we discussed can be found in the show notes on kansascity.com and in the print editions of the Kansas City Star. We'll be back soon to talk sports in Kansas City on another edition of Sports Beat KC.